Hi everyone, Auntie Lexi here. Now tell me if this has happened to you before. Have you ever played a game that you haven't played in a long time and it kind of felt like you slipped your feet into a pair of comfortable slippers and then all of a sudden you find yourself kicking ass in said slippers? Okay, that metaphor didn't quite work, but honestly, that's kind of like how it felt like to me when I returned to the world of Chained Echoes to play the brand new DLC, Ashes of Elrant, before the game releases today, actually, on all major platforms. It's been over 2.5 years since I last played Chained Echoes, and with Ashes of Elrant, it not only felt like a homecoming, but it was also a really good excuse to revisit Chained Echoes' wonderful, innovative gameplay. And of course, the snappy combat system that has aged beautifully. And in case you missed it, Chained Echoes Ashes of Elrant is out right now on all major platforms. By the way, if you love deep dives and spoiler-free analysis in your reviews of JRPGs, indies, and niche titles, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Ashes of Elrant is just the beginning, and I'll help you navigate through these upcoming releases in this wide world of gaming. For starters, Ashes of Elrant is immediately accessible from the title screen. You can use your clear save to play it, or choose a ready-made save file for you to use. That said, the events of this DLC happened just before the original game's final battle, so if you play this one first, be prepared to be spoiled. There is a recap, but I didn't find it to be too helpful. I chose the pre-made file because I wanted to see what the experience would feel like for those players. One of my biggest concerns with returning to Chained Echoes was how difficult it would be to reacclimate myself with the game's systems. After all, while Chained Echoes might look like it borrows heavily from Chrono Trigger, it did introduce some bold concepts. But to be perfectly candid, that concern really comes from how Tales of Arise's DLC handled things a few years ago. I was severely disappointed to find out that none of my character builds carried over. I had to respec every single character from scratch. It was tedious, time-consuming, and honestly ruined the whole reunion with Alphen and gang. So you can imagine that I'm approaching this DLC with some trepidation. Thankfully, Ashes of Elrant's pre-made save file has every single skill, passive and active, already unlocked, and for the most part, upgraded to level 2. You're given an additional 999 SP points per character to use to max out any of the skills, which isn't so overwhelming compared to my Tales of Arise DLC experience. But where the rubber really meets the road is when you're thrown into the first battles of this DLC. In case you don't remember, combat in Chained Echoes revolves around managing the overdrive gauge, a kind of temperature meter with distinct zones. You want to keep each character's needle in the green zone for optimal performance. Push too hard and you'll tip into the red, where you take more damage and lose effectiveness. Sky Armor battles riff on this system too, but with their own unique mechanics that set them apart and demand a different rhythm. What's great about these initial battles is how low stakes they are. The developers clearly understand that it's probably been a while since you last stepped into this world, so they give you just enough room to reacquaint yourself with each character's quirks and skills. It's a space to experiment, relearn the fundamentals, and shake off the rust, all while still keeping things mildly challenging. That said, I'd argue that it's almost impossible to actually lose these early fights. But once you move past these introductory areas, Ashes of Elrant quickly reminds you that this is not the kind of turn-based RPG you can brute force through grinding. You may have access to all of your character's skills, but success comes down to building a thoughtful loadout and adapting to what each battle demands. It brought to mind a particular encounter from the original game, an enemy that would shield itself from either physical or magical attacks depending on which type hit first. I got wiped more than once by that, but it also taught me something important. victory wasn't about grinding levels. It was about understanding my toolkit, selecting the right characters, and deploying the right strategies. That design philosophy is very much alive in Ashes of Elrant. And while that might frustrate players who prefer to brute force their way through RPGs, every encounter here feels challenging, but never unfair. When it comes to progression, Ashes of Elrant streamlines quite a few systems. The party board returns, once again rewarding you with gold, materials, and more for completing specific objectives. Crystals can no longer be combined, making them much more straightforward to use. And finally, and this is something that I had to literally boot up the game and record footage of, there's fishing now. Yes, friends, Chained Echoes is officially a full-fledged JRPG, at least in its DLC. And with all of these elements in place, the tighter progression, the return of the innovative overdrive system that rewards smart strategy over grinding, you're met with a fresh set of challenges and enemies. Just like in the base game, the foes in Ashes of Elrant will test your wit. And with full access to every character's toolkit, you're always on a level playing field. It just comes down to how you approach each battle. So if there ever was any concern that the devs might have dropped the ball in this DLC, rest assured, when it comes to the gameplay, they've nailed it. That's not to say the devs don't have you covered elsewhere in Ashes of Elrant. Without spoiling any story beats, the DLC acts as a prelude to the original game, taking you to the land of Elrant and diving deeper into the lore surrounding the Harbinger. There's a rich history tied to this place, and to the main cast, and the DLC gives you plenty of opportunities to explore this familiar yet different world, while doing things that felt notably absent from Chained Echoes. By that, I mean many of the late game additions, and the rest of the supporting cast, finally get the spotlight. These characters are given room to grow, breathe, and shine in ways the original didn't always allow. And as you watch these moments unfold, you'll start to remember exactly who everyone is, like how Sienna is still a badass samurai-esque thief who takes absolutely no guff from Rob. And believe me when I say this, Rob gets his comeuppance in this DLC. If I had one complaint about the DLC, it's a particular story beat where Ashes of Elrant silos your party, shifting the perspective to individual characters. During this section, you're given the option to either experience each party member's moment, or skip them entirely and move on with the main story. I won't spoil what happens, but I do wish the game had been a bit clearer that these segments are optional. That said, even though they slow the pacing and pull you away from exploration and combat, I still think these moments are absolutely worth experiencing. They give each character a chance to shine, spotlighting their personalities and adding so much needed levity to an otherwise high-stakes mission. And beyond the main cast, there's the mysterious White Wolf, a key figure in Ashes of Elrant's story. Like the rest of the party, they have a distinct playstyle, but unlocking their full potential takes some effort. You'll need to collect medals scattered across the world, which can be redeemed to unlock new skills. So their flexibility in combat is directly tied to how much you explore. Fortunately, exploration in Ashes of Elrant is anything but a chore, thanks to the return of the original game's smart quality-of-life features. NPCs you've spoken to are clearly marked with an icon. The map gives you a solid sense of your location within each zone. And fast travel and save anywhere options keep things convenient. These touches go a long way in making exploration feel rewarding instead of frustrating, especially for players who might not usually enjoy it. Of course, the thoughtful level design from the base game is still present, which means reaching certain treasure chests can be a fun little puzzle in itself. And as someone who loves uncovering every chest, which the game tracks naturally, It reminded me just how satisfying it is to dig into every corner of the map. Exploration here doesn't feel like padding. It feels like an adventure. And of course, I have to mention the game's gorgeous aesthetic and the subtle new animations and visual flourishes introduced in this DLC. It's not a massive overhaul, but it gives Ashes of Elrant a slightly different vibe from the original, showing that the devs aren't afraid to flex a little. You can really feel how much they've learned, both from player feedback and from watching how people engaged with the game. Naturally, a new DLC also means new music. 15 plus brand new tracks from Eddie Marianocro, who, by the way, confirmed that I pronounced his name correctly. As with the base game, his compositions here are absolutely stellar, striking that perfect balance between 16-bit JRPG nostalgia and the nuance of modern game music. It's exactly the kind of soundtrack that stays with you long after you've put the controller down. I don't know how many people were truly anticipating this DLC, but believe me when I say, Ashes of Elrant doesn't take long to sell you on its premise. With richer character moments, new minigames, streamlined systems, and a return to one of the most thoughtfully designed turn-based combat systems in recent RPG memory. This expansion elevates Chained Echoes in all the right ways. In many ways, it feels like the missing piece, rounding out the full experience and giving the cast and world the extra room they deserve. And honestly, I couldn't be more excited to see so many of you diving into it for the first time today. Which reminds me, this DLC is packed with great character moments, so I gotta ask, who is your favorite character in Chained Echoes, and why? For me, it's easily Sienna, but I'd love to hear your picks. Drop them in the comments below, and let's talk about it. Want to keep the conversation going? Join our Discord at dsc.gg/backlogbattle. We celebrate your gaming wins, talk about the latest releases, JRPGs or otherwise, and just have a great time hanging out with fellow fans. And if you'd like to support a trans content creator making thoughtful deep dives into JRPGs, indies, and niche titles, consider joining my Patreon at patreon.com/backlogbattle. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.